Environmental impact assessment today we will discuss. So the first question is that what is environmental impact assessment? Isn't it? So you try to see the words in this environmental impact. So we are going to study the impact of whatever the change will take place in environment. And we are going to assess it. So if some agency or some decision agency will decide that by bringing some project, what may be the consequence or what may be the impact of the industry on the environment as such, then this type of environment assessment is known as environmental impact assessment. So basically this environmental impact assessment is the study to predict the effect of a proposed project on the environment. Let us suppose in Jharkhand we want to set up a new mining industry. Mining industry in such, it is a lot of threat to the environment. We dig a lot of soil, and in the atmosphere the amount of particulate matter which will go, that will be tremendous. So directly or indirectly it affects the living persons who is living there, as well as the cattle, the environment as such. So for everybody it is a problem. So government first of all will see whether giving a tender or giving a project of mining in Jharkhand or some place, whether it is feasible or not, or how much impact it will create on the environment. If the government will feel that the industry, some industry is causing a lot of problem, they are releasing a lot of toxic chemicals in the water or in the air, then certainly that industry will not come into existence. Government will not allow that industry to get set up. So whenever an industry will plan to set itself, the owner of that industry, first of all, he have to go to the government and he have to present a report of whatever the changes he is trying to build up. He will try to build up which will impact the environment. And then the body of the government, different agencies of the government, they will assess whether his project or her project will impact the environment or not. So this type of assessment is done almost now in every developed country and in the developing countries. India is following the standards of environmental impact assessment. Our Ministry of Environment and Forest, that is a department of Government of India which look into the matters of environmental impact assessment. So basically environmental impact assessment, this is a decision making tool. What decision you have to make? You have to make the decision what is the impact of an industry, what may be the impact of an industry in the present and in the future on the environment. So EI compares various alternatives for the project and seeks to identify the one which represent the best combination of economic and environmental cost and benefit. So, so let us suppose if some industry is dumping some impurity in the groundwater or in the surface water, EIA will also suggest that how much amount of contamination is allowed to be dumped into some water body, isn't it? So basically this EIA deals with a decision-making process. Okay, so we will try to understand how our industry or how a project can impact our environment. So I have tried to explain this with this graphical representation. So let us suppose this is an industry. So wherever we will set an industry, in the surrounding we will have forest, we will have animals, we will have different varieties of birds, we have homes, we have peoples, we have natural resources. So let us suppose this is a river, water body will be there. Though there is absolutely no industry which can be installed and which will come into existence and it will not impact some of the human beings or the living beings. It will impact. So if some industry is there, certainly you have to cut some trees, so you are harming the forest. If you are setting some industry, that means you are giving less area for feeding of animals, birds. That will also impact. If you are setting some industry in a large area, certainly the movement of the birds, the movement of animals, you are going to check. You're not allowed those animals to come into a boundary. So the ecosystem of the animals, the birds, as such, it gets disturbed. Now, another thing is that if the industry is causing some air pollution, if it is causing some water pollution, certainly it is going to impact all of the things, whether it is living, whether it is non-living. So if some pollutant is created into water as surface runoff, certainly it will go into the river also. And it will get mixed and it will flow with the river. The contamination will flow with the river. If the contamination will be persistent in nature, certainly it will flow to a very long distances and it can hamper on the downstream side of the river also. So whenever industry will come into existence or when industry is going to come into existence, he have to go to the government and he have to show his report that his industry is not causing problem to the plants, to the animals, to the human beings, and there is some permissible limit beyond which it is not causing some harm. So if, let us suppose, how the government role comes into play. So government role come into the play when, let us suppose, our government says that any industry cannot be set in an area which is very close to the river. Very close to the river. Let us suppose it is 10 kilometers. So any industry cannot be set up in the diameter or in the periphery of 10 kilometers of a river. So if government will say something like this, the industry will not be too close to the river. In this way, there are a lot of points. We will discuss about the points also in the future. So there are a lot of points on which government says that you have to check, you have to see whether you are harming the environment or not. So if the government will say that your industry cannot be very close to the reserved forest, it cannot be very close to the sanctuaries, then the owner of the industry who is going to set up that industry, he have to see, he have to fulfill all the criteria, isn't it? So let us suppose when you have to give the examination, there are certain criteria that you have to write the name, you have to write your ID number. When you are giving the examination, your physical mod, then you have to come with your ID card, something like that. There is some criteria, isn't it? If you will not fulfill that criteria, you will not able to give the examination. Let us suppose if you have not come to the examination with the I card, you will not be given, you will not be allowed to give the examination. Similarly, when an industry come into existence, when somebody plans to set up an industry, he have to go to the government. Government will insert some of the criteria in front of it by looking after the status of the environment as such. If the industry will follow, or if the industry will fulfill all those criteria, only then a clean chit will be given to that industry to set up in that location. If anyhow he will not able to give, he will not able to take the clearance from the government, it will not be possible for him to set that industry, that area. Why government is doing this type of thing? Government is doing this type of activity. He is trying to set up some criteria for installation of industry, because slowly and gradually government is also feeling all over the world. It has been felt that if there will be not there will be no check on the industry or the location, the environment will keep on degrading with time. Thus, there is a need to have this type of criteria. So, EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment, systematically examines both beneficial and adverse consequences of the project and ensures that these effects are taken into account during project design. Isn't it? Okay, so let us suppose now we will try to see what is the historical background of environmental impact assessment. When it has started, isn't it? When this process has started. So, before 1970s, what happened when a new industry want to come into existence? What are the things has been seen? So the project which was going to be established, that only see the technical part of it and the economical part of it. So basically, let us suppose in 1950, some businessman had tried to establish an industry. He has not to go to the government for any type of clearance. Only he have to see whether the technicality of the process is as par or not, or the cost which is related to the setup of that industry, that is adequate or not financially. So only two parts were seen before 1970. One is the financial part and another is the engineering or technical part. So if somebody has capability of financing the industry, he can set without any doubt, without going to the government. So in this way, before 1970s, a lot of industries has come, starting from the era of industrial revolution. Many different industries has come into existence in European countries, in American countries. Some of the countries, they were related to the emission of toxic chemicals into the environment also. So at that time, around some 1950s or something like this, 1942, a book has come at that time. The name of the book was Silent Spring, and it was written by Rachel Carson. And in the book, that editor and that author has mentioned about the ill effect of pesticide DDT on the environment as such, on the plants, on the animals, on the human beings. She has explained very nicely that what can be the impact of those things. Many industry has criticized her and criticized her book also. But slowly and gradually, the people, the folk, they become aware that these industries can directly or indirectly come into our food chain. And indirectly, it can impact the person, his next generation, his next generation, his next generation. It will keep on going. So with time, government has also tried to understand that if industry will come into such a large extent without any checkup, then those industry will create a lot of threat on every type of living organism on the surface of earth or beneath the surface of the earth. Even for those things which is not natural, for example, for air, for water, for mountains, for springs, for everything, it can be a problem. So after 1970s, the government has tried to control the expansion of industries. In that regard, EIA was introduced by NEPA in 1970s in USA, National Environmental Protection Agency in 1917 USA, and public participation has been introduced. That means if some draft will come, draft will of our industry can come, then public can comment whether that is a good project for him, whether it is a bad project for him, whether that project should be installed, whether that project should not be installed. These type of debates has started in USA. And one of the remarkable role played by Rickel Carlson book, that is the Silent Spring. It has given very comprehensive report about what can be the consequences of pesticides, DDT, on the environment. And slowly and gradually, the Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they also follow the same trend, and they have also started evaluating the projects on the basis of environmental impact. Between 1980s and 1990s, many developed countries and developing countries, especially the Asian countries, they have also started the process of assessing the impact of a project on the environment. India has also joined after 1990s. In 1990s, India also adopted the EIA formally. So if you will go on Ministry of Environment and Forestry website, you will have many documents related to this environmental impact assessment. You will see there are a lot of reports on different industries, how they have assessed it, whether they have given the clean chit to that industry or not. It is totally presented there. So you must go on the website and you see that what are the information which is given about different projects. So what happens after, so this is the chronology by which we can understand that initially there was no such assessment. But slowly and gradually, as they have seen some changes in the environment, the assessment become necessary and it become the part of the government. So this is the time frame for setup of EIA in India. During 1976 to 77, Planning Commission of India asked the DST to examine the river valley projects from an environmental angle. What is this DST? DST is Department of Science and Technology. It is the scientific wing of Government of India. So how this process has started, the process of environmental impact assessment, how it has started in India. So initially, government has only seen the river valley projects. River valley projects. So river valley development, it's the formation of canals to bring out some channels from the rivers. So government has started, DST has started, Planning Commission has started to see what can be the impact of these projects, isn't it? So what happens that in after 1960s, we have a lot of canal system. Certainly that canal will come from some rivers. So there you can divide river into two parts. A river which is natural, and river which is man-made. So slowly and gradually, what we are trying to do, we are trying to create artificial river. If you have some extension, if you have some extension of canal from a river, if you are trying to make the corners of the rivers concrete, or if you are trying to modify the floodplain of the river, what you are trying to do? You are trying to intervene the natural process of a river. So that river will not be as such a natural source. It will become man-made process. So canal, when you are diverting a canal from a river, you are not only making a canal, you are also trying to distribute a natural source of water from the river. So in this way, you are also hampering the river. Government has also thought in the same direction. That's why Planning Commission of India, they have asked DST to examine the river valley projects from an environmental angle. It is very important. It is the environmental angle. It is not from the technical point of view. There are a lot of technology which is available, isn't it? Technology is it has gone very far away. It has a very rich culture in itself, technology. But there is always a contradictory relation between the technology and between the environment. Both cannot run into the same direction. So if the technology is moving upward, certainly the environment will not move in the upward direction, or the status, the health of the environment will not run into the same direction, into the upward movement direction. It will have some different impact. So from environmental angle, one have to see the technology also. Let us suppose if we have mobile and our children, our friends, our brothers, for out of 24 hours, if they will be in, they will be on the mobile for 20 hours or 15 hours or 10 hours. There's no problem with the technology. Technology is giving you a lot of relaxation, a lot of good things on the mobile phone. But from the health point of view, is it feasible to have always on the mobile or always on the laptop, always on this type of devices? What the impact it will create to the human? What the impact it can create to the animals, to the plants? So by seeing that angle, it is important. By seeing the status of the health, whether it is of the plants, whether it is of animals, whether it is the microorganisms, whether it is the human beings, that is the environmental angle. So one have to see the environmental angle. What is the environmental angle of a project, a technology? That has started to assist during the 1976 to 1977. It has started in India. Till 1994, environmental clearance from the central government was an administrative decision and lacked legislative support. So it is only the administrative decision which were taken. It is not the legislative support. It is not legislated by the government of India. On 27 January 1994, MOEF, under the Environmental Protection Act 1986, made environmental clearance mandatory. So now it become commissioned. It is also supported by the legislative body. MOEF also supported, and environmental clearance, it become mandatory. 12 amendments has been made in the EIA notification of 1994. If you will go and see on this site, MOEF website, you will get a lot of information related to environmental impact assessment. So this is the way, chronology by which EIA has come into existence in India. So if you will see the EIA notification of September 2006, what it says, the notification makes it mandatory for various projects such as mining, thermal power plants, river valley infrastructure, and industries, including very small electroplating or foundry units to get environmental clearance. So every type of project, every type of industrial project, whether you are making the apartment or you are making some shops in some area, big bazaar, even for them, the environmental impact assessment become necessary by the notification of September 2006. So you can see any project, whether it is related to the mining, whether it is related to the thermal power plant, it is related to river valley projects, infrastructure, you are making some road, highway, ports, airport, or any building, or any industry, even small industries, the environmental clearance become necessary and important part. Without getting the environmental clearance from the government, one cannot able to establish any type of projects, any type of industries. That was according to the EIA notification of September 2006. Unlike the EIA notification of 1994, state government has been given authority of clearing projects depending on the size, capacity of the project. So state government has also got the authority to assess the projects. What are the steps which are important? What the government see actually? So basically there are 8 steps by which a industrialist have to go through before setting an industry, isn't it? These are the process which has been adopted for clearing the projects through environmental impact assessment. What is first? First is the screening. Screening means determines whether the proposed project requires an EIA, and if it does, then the level of assessment required. So basically in screening part, it is only seen whether the EIA process is required or not. And if it is required, then the assessment, which type of assessment is required, it has been decided. Then comes the scoping. This stage identifies the key issues and impacts that should be further investigated. And there is the impact analysis, identifies and predicts the likely environmental and social impact of the proposed project and evaluates the significance of it, isn't it? So impact analysis by using some tools, technical tools, by studying the impact of that on the environment by various technological softwares, it is done. Then mitigation. Mitigation, what is this? Recommends the action to reduce and avoid the potential adverse environmental consequence of development activities. So it also suggests the industries that what are the steps he have to take to reduce the impact of certain pollutant on the environment. Then it is the reporting presents the result of EIA in a form of a report to the decision-making body. Review of EIA is done by expert committees. Then decision-making is taken. It decides whether the project is rejected, approved, or needs further change. Post-monitoring, it checks to ensure that the impact of the project do not exceed the legal standards. So with time, it is not one-time process that you have got the environmental clearance from the government and it becomes for lifetime. No. From time to time, government will check up, or you have to give the report about the status of your industry. So these are the 8 steps which has been followed in EIA. Process flow for EIA. So let us suppose if a industry, if a person want to set up his industry or some project, what are the things he have to do? So first of all, he have to select a site. Site selection is necessary, isn't it? So he will select a site for his industry first of all. Then he will prepare a report. He will conduct EIA. That means he will prepare a project a report. So conduction of EIA. Further what he will do? He will conduct the EIA. Then he will apply for NOC to the government. NOC, that means no objection certificate, isn't it? So he will give a EIA report, EIA assessment report to the government, and he will apply for NOC. Then SPCB arrange public hearing. Public hearing will take place. Then project proponents apply for the environmental clearance, submitting required documents. So all type of document one have to submit it. It will be reviewed by the committee, and then the committee will take some decision. What type of decision he will take? So 3 decisions it can be taken. One is the change suggested. If some change is required in the EIA or in the selection site itself, then the committee can give some recommendation. Otherwise, he can accept the EIA as such, or he can also reject it. He can also reject it. If some change will be there, then after changing the document, once again that person have to come and do the EIA, isn't it? So this process will be followed up. So this is a very brief flow chart by which one can understand that what happens in EIA. So basically, if some person wants to establish some industry, then he have to select a site, then he have to conduct the EIA, he have to take the NOC, then public hearing is also important, that his environmental impact assessment report will be studied by the government or some agency that will review his EIA report. Then decision will be taken whether some change is required, or the project will be accepted as such, or it can be rejected, isn't it? Okay, so this is all about the process. Today we have discussed a very basic thing. What is EIA? What is how it is? Why it is important? Why the government need it? How this EIA has come into existence? How EIA has come and developed in India? What is the flow chart? So this is all for today.